From here starts the speaking test. This is the speaking mock test of the International English Language Testing System taking place online in Ross IELTS Academy. The candidate is Kayo. The candidate number is 01413278. The examiner is Luisa Meinusch, examiner number 443577. Good afternoon, my name is Luisa. Would you please tell me your full name?
Is Kayo Sanfelice.
And can I see your identification, please?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Then let's get started with part one. So
Sure.
in the first part of the exam, I will ask you some personal questions. First, I'd like to ask about your job. Do you have a job right now?
Yes, I do. I'm a photographer.
And what job do you think you'll be doing in 5 years?
Well, I believe I will carry on doing photography, but I would probably add on top of that, like teaching or something like that, like giving workshops, like talks, things like that.
And what skills and qualifications are required for that job?
Well, not. You can do it without any qualification. You can just like learn like self-taught stuff. So you can do it. But you can also study. So I'm actually looking for doing this test because I applied for a master's in photography. So I plan to be studying next year commercial photography. So you can do more than just like learn by yourself.
Now let's move on to talk about festivals. What is your favorite festival?
Well, as a Brazilian, I think I must say Carnival. I think it's quite cool.
Now, what is the most important festival in your country?
I would say Carnival. I mean, of course, we have like Christmas, we have Easter, but Carnival is the main like festival in my country. Yeah, we have it for like a week, and everyone is like happy during that festival.
Do you like Western festivals?
What do you mean by Western festivals?
That's up for you to decide.
Well, yeah, I think, well, if I got the message, yeah, I think my country is quite influenced by these Western like festivals. I think Christmas is one of them, Easter is one of them. So yeah, I kind of enjoy it, although I'm not religious, but yeah, I quite like them.
Now let's move on to talk about making plans. Do you make plans every day?
Yes, I do. I do make plans every day of my life, thinking about what I'm gonna do in the day, next day, and the following weeks, the following year, the next 10 years or 5.
So is it easy for you to manage your time?
No, I don't think it is for anyone. It's like, it depends. But yeah, it's quite hard to manage my time. I think I have so many things to do, and I wish I could have like 48 hours day, or like a twin brother who could take over half of my tasks.
So do you think it's helpful to plan your time?
Yes, if I don't plan my time, then it's hard to have things done. So even though I can plan it, I still miss things here and there. But yeah, I believe when I plan my day, when I organize my time, I'm able to do the things smoothly and easily, so I can rest at certain points as well. So yeah, I think it's important.
All right, thank you. That's it for part one. Now we can move on to part two. So in part two, I'm going to give you a card with a topic, and then I'd like you to talk about that for 2 minutes. Before you start, you'll have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say, and you can make some notes to help if you wish. Do you understand?
Sure. Yes, I do. Thank you.
Perfect. So you should describe a person whom you know well who came up with a new idea or invention. Your 1 minute of preparation starts right now. All right, your 1 minute is over. You may start speaking now.
Okay, so I will talk about my friend Isabella. We met a couple of years ago. I mean, several years ago, at school when we were about 13 and 14. And we are from the same city, and we are like very good friends. She's a lovely person. She's really kind and generous. She's really nice to be close to. So what she invented, I'm not really sure if she invents something, but she start doing something a little bit different than usual. So she lives in Barcelona right now, and she's a dancer, but she also started working with Pilates, and she kind of mixed these two things together, and she created a new way of doing it, which is quite interesting and got quite popular. So yeah, she's just created this new way of doing Pilates, which is a kind of like boring thing. Um, so very repetitive. So you kind of like need to do the movements. And she add on top of it some like dance cues and dance movements and songs and things, like just make all this class, like Pilates class, a little bit more interesting and more dynamic. So I think that it's a really nice thing, really nice thing that she did and she created. So I'm quite proud of her, and I actually did a class and I quite enjoyed. So yeah, I believe that she's really smart, and she can grow in this field where she started going, and she's digging towards that now. Thank you.
That's your 2 minutes. All right, I will stop sharing my screen. That was it for part 2. So now we can move on to part 3. So you've been talking about a person whom you know well, who came up with a new idea or invention. And now I'd like to ask you some questions that are related to this. How can people innovate or make new discoveries?
How?
Yes.
Well, I think you need to have free time. You need to have free time. Like, I'm a creative person, so I always need to think about the new thing, like a new trend that it's not there, something that is gonna get the people, become viral. So I think it's important to have free time to think about it and anticipate, what it's going to be, the next trend, what's going to be in the next season. So yeah, I think that's the way. Like, you need to think, you need to study, you need to focus on something that you really want to do. Like in my case, I'm a photographer, so I'm always thinking about something new, and new types of lighting, new types of poses, new types of models. um Am I going to be the new, like, Avedon or Mario Testino? I don't know, but I'm trying. As you said, like at the beginning, like how to manage my time. So yeah, I have to plan ahead. I have to plan my time. I have to do everything because I want to get there. So yeah, I think it's a lot of planning, lots of free time for you to, feel that inside you and have new ideas. As a creative person, you need free time.
And how can governments help scientists and innovators of their countries?
Giving them money, a lot of money and incentives. And I think, yeah, that's a good start. But of course, they could introduce these topics, like in school, for example. They could create incentives in school to for these students, like, to be more creative, maybe some classes towards that field, like to be more creative, to be more innovative. So yeah, I think they could help with money and incentives.
At what age do children learn to form their own opinions and make decisions?
Well, I'm not a specialist, but I have lots of siblings, so I'm the oldest, so I could see them growing up. I believe, like, from 5 years, they start getting, like, very, how can I say, you could see that it's a little person, so they start developing a strong personality. So I think from 5, yeah, I think it's nice. It's a good time.
Do you think their opinions are likely to be similar to their parents' opinions?
Yes and no. It's quite a tricky question. Yes, of course. Everyone, you grow up in an environment that of course, you get the influences around you. So, of course, you're going to have some influences from your parents. However, I can guarantee you that you also have your own personality, your own thoughts. So yeah, it can be, but not 100%.
Okay, thank you so much. This is the end of your test now.
Do you want to know what band score you'll get in the IELTS speaking test? Perhaps you want to improve your performance and prepare yourself for the real test? Then why not book an online mock test with us that will last for 25 minutes? 12 minutes of the test itself and 13 minutes of comprehensive feedback, plus we'll give you useful tips on how to make your performance better. Remember, all our examiners are especially trained by British Council instructors, so we know how to help you. Join us.
All right, so let's see how you did today. Before I talk about the 4 IELTS criteria, I just want to give you an overview and a quick idea about what parts 1, 2, and 3, what it's all about there and how you did. So part 1, as I mentioned before, is personal questions. That means it's supposed to be rather short answers and short questions, short answers, sorry. So I'd say some of your answers were maybe a little bit too short and some were a little bit too long. So it should be about 3 sentences. There's no need to go into too much detail in part 1. You can save that up for parts 2 and 3. So just find like a medium length, about 3 sentences, depending on how long they are. Then part 2 is all about talking at length, because you should cover your full 2 minutes and you can use the bullet points to do so. I didn't feel like you had any problem covering the 2 minutes. I know it can sometimes be more difficult than you'd think, but I'd say because you have such a good command of English, you shouldn't have a problem doing that. Just remember to not stop before the 2 minutes are over, because that would lose you points in both fluency and coherence and lexical resource. And then part 3 is all about coherent, longer answers. This is where you're supposed to develop your topic and elaborate on your ideas a little bit more. I'd say, again, you didn't have any problem doing that here. So yeah, just keep doing what you did today and you should be fine. All right, that was it about the 3 parts. Now we can talk about your IELTS criteria. The first one being your fluency and coherence, and then your lexical resource, your grammatical range and accuracy, and the last one is your pronunciation. Let me start by saying I think it's pretty obvious that you have been in the UK for a while, I would say, because you do have very good command of English, right? you know how to have a proper conversation and form your answers. I would say for you right now, it's just about kind of perfecting some of the things according to IELTS, because IELTS has sometimes very specific requirements that you should meet in order to have a high score in the end, right? So this is where I'm just going to give you some tips right now. Yeah, so let's get into it. Your fluency and coherence. As I said before, you didn't seem to have any problems like giving me straight answers. You always had something to talk about. You knew how to develop your topic, especially in part 3. That was very well done. You know, when I think it was your first question that you were asked, where you just went on and talked about it and developed your topic, and that was very good, right? So then part 2, same thing. I think in the end you struggled a little bit to keep going. You know, and these things you can always kind of try to go off topic if that happens, right? Because you talked about your friend and you mentioned she lives in Barcelona. Maybe talk about her life there a little bit, or talk about, I don't know, how you want to visit her and try it out or something like this, you know, because once you're running out of ideas, you start hesitating. And that's, you know, you could avoid that by going into like off topic, going into more details, giving more examples and so on. Right. So you did have a little bit of hesitation here and there, as I mentioned. I would say it was mostly content related, maybe once or twice for vocabulary, but that's nothing major, right? So I think what you could do a little bit more is maybe use some more of these boosters and fillers. You already did use some. I would just say maybe, you know, try to use more. And at the same time, if you have a topic that where you feel like you're kind of running out of ideas, you can maybe try to slow down a little bit, right? Because most of the answers came out really fast, and that's fair because you know how to, you know, give a proper answer. I'm just saying when it comes to like content related hesitation, maybe slowing down could help you to avoid having these hesitations. Okay. One more thing is your connectives and discourse markers. That is very important, right? I would say you have a very nice range there and you use these naturally. For example, you said, I believe, even though, I think, of course, however, and so on. Just always keep in mind to have as wide of a range there as you can, using some more linking words, some different ones. For example, you can use things like besides, in addition, and so on, right? I know that you know about these, you just have to remind yourself to actually work them into your answers. And then one more hint for you, you probably already guessed it during the test, is you should not really ask the examiner what they mean. Because usually if the question is really up to your own interpretation, if there's something to be interpreted about it, it's totally fine if you just go your own way, as long as the answer kind of makes sense, right? Obviously, it should be relevant to the question, but if it is up for interpretation, you can totally do your own thing, right? So just as a little hint. Okay, so I gave you an 8 in your fluency and coherence because I think you gave very, very good answers. You know, it's just about reducing these tiny little things that I talked about, like some, you know, some of your hesitations and so on, but it's still pretty solid there. Okay, now for your lexical resource. I would say, obviously, you feel very comfortable using a wide range of vocabulary. You know, you should always keep in mind to bring in topic-related vocabulary. If you don't know the topic, if you're not familiar with the topic, try to go off topic again to find something, you know, something else to talk about and show that you have a range of these words. You also knew how to skillfully use your idioms and your collocations and so on. So I'd say you feel pretty comfortable with the language. I'd just say what you could focus on a little bit more is your paraphrasing, because that's pretty important in IELTS to kind of reduce repeating your own words and the questions. So like whatever you hear from the examiner. I always say you can never really paraphrase enough, right? So try to show this range of vocabulary, try to avoid repeating things. For example, I think in one sentence you used influence like twice or 3 times. And this is where you can say influence and impact and so on, right? So I know that you know these words, you just have to actually use them. So yeah, for your lexical resource, I gave you a 7 because I think you can paraphrase more, and you can also try to bring in some more topic-related vocabulary as well as idiomatic language, because I'm pretty positive that you know this. You just have to, or you should bring in as much as you can. Okay. All right. So now grammar and accuracy. I'd say you didn't have a lot of problems with your grammar, right? Most of your sentences were error-free, no worries there. You also had a range of different complex structures. For example, you used some conditional clauses, some relative clauses, compound sentences, and so on. Same goes for your tenses, because you should have a range of your tenses in there. When it comes to your tenses, however, I would say sometimes you're still mixing them up a little bit. So, for example, in part 2, I was not sure sometimes if it was a grammatical mistake or a pronunciation error, because sometimes what I heard was present tense where it was supposed to be past tense. So I was not really 100% sure if it was because you were not pronouncing the D at the end. So, for example, you said she tried and start. She tried and started this and that, right? Mm-hmm. So always keep in mind to like stick to the same tense. And another hint, just generally, is always listen very closely to what tense the question asks for, right? And stick to that if possible. All right. And then another thing that you sometimes did is, for example, what you said is a new trend that it's not there. A new trend that is not there, right? Doesn't need the it again. Because it's a relative clause. All right, mm-hmm. So I would say you can bring in even more of these complex structures because you know them, maybe bring in some more conditional clauses or a passive voice and so on. And then you should definitely be able to get a high score. For now, I gave you a 7 here. Now moving on to your pronunciation. This is pretty much what I said before. I can really tell by how you speak that you live in the UK and that you know how to like have a conversation in English, and you do sound very natural and conversational, right? Because to like every question you had a very natural reaction, and you always had a nice intonation in there that sounded very natural and as if you're having an actual conversation. And this is exactly what it should be like, right? So always keep in mind to keep up this like conversational like intonation, and just pronounce the words as clearly as you can to avoid any misunderstandings, and then you should be fine. So for your pronunciation, I gave you an 8. That means that you got an overall 7.5 for today.